We've got Tina here, and we've just been going off on how uncorrupt our nation is running right now, how sound
We're
our
just talking
money
about how
is.
the Fed is so great and things.
Everything is under control.
We've got an auditor in, and we're
Yes.
going to talk the Fed. How
There
about
you
that?
go.
That sounds,
That sounds exciting.
yeah, that sounds scary.
Can
So
you
how are you
zoom-
doing?
Can you
Doing
zoom in
good.
a little so we can see her
Oh, I can. Yeah,
a little better?
I can.
Thank you for being here in person. That's so
Oh.
awesome.
Oh, thanks for the invitation. I
You're
didn't miss
running
this.
around like crazy, aren't you?
Yes.
This
is-
campaigning is not for the weak.
Oh no, tomorrow's going to get worse though. Tomorrow I think is the worst day.
It is.
Right.
How many conventions?
There are 6 that we're invited to. 5 are happening. 6 are happening. 5 are invited to, and then a meet and greet down in Utah County at the end.
How do you not get invited to a convention?
Well, Cash didn't want state people there,
Really?
so to interfere with their county elections because they had a lot of county.
Oh,
Do they've got a spicy county election going on this year?
It must be spicy because they didn't want any interference. So
I
they,
need to
they
get
did a
down
separate
there.
meet and
That'll be
greet
the
next
fun one.
Tuesday.
I'm popping popcorn. Gonna take some fresh
So,
You know,
brew.
it's been kind of fun to be in the room for some of these county conventions to see some of the races that have been decided.
I
Oh,
bet.
I'm sure.
I bet it's never a dull moment,
No.
especially in counties that have some spicy races.
Yeah.
Most of our candidates are winning by acclamation. So when you come to ours, we've got one district voting, and that's it. And it's
Wow.
a small district, and it's for a county council seat. No one else ran against our incumbents within the party.
Well, that must mean things are going well.
Yes, they're going really well. And I mean, I'm sorry, guys. I think Tooele County is closed right now for growth.
No,
because
Tooele
we
County,
are
what you do?
So full.
Good luck.
You get on I-15 and you drive south, and you keep driving south. And when you hit the Mexico border, you went too far. Turn around, come back.
This is
Come back
Tina.
about 10 minutes, and then you're in Tooele County,
Okay.
also known as Los Angeles. A lot of palm trees. It's
Yeah,
beautiful there. Enjoy.
really.
That's where they're all coming from, though. That's the problem. You got to.
Oh, then you guys are already there.
Yeah, just stay there.
So, Tina, welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tell us about your.
Tina Cannon. And while you do that, I'm going to flash up Tina's website.
So, what are you serving now in the state?
So I am currently the senior policy advisor in the office of the state auditor.
So you work with Dougal.
Yep.
And everyone knows him as Frugal Dougal. I know
He's
him.
serious about that too.
He's one of the best people. And I mean, he's helped us get to the bottom of some stuff in Stansbury Park, which I was like, wow, this is awesome. In a small agency that was raising taxes on us 104% in each area. And so and it wasn't because I knew him or anything. Someone else reached out to him. And by the time I was like the third, and I was like so excited that he took the time.
Yeah.
But he's quite frugal. And that's, how long have you worked with him?
Just under 2 years I've been in the office. He reached out when he heard I was retiring, and apparently that's not allowed.
Yeah, because you're too young to retire. Are you kidding me?
So
You can't retire at 30.
yes, 30. That's yeah.
He gave you the
Yeah.
oh, you're retiring, huh?
Yeah. So I got to know John when I was elected in Morgan County on their commission. I came on right after they'd had an embezzlement of 100% of the general fund. And coming in with an accounting background and reading the audit reports and getting a little nervous over, because it is the council and the commission that are over those financial
Right.
policies. So to implement that change was not as easy as it should have been.
How did it get past them? Was it just bad policy?
So most people, it's because of trust. When fraud happens like that, it's usually because you trust the person who's doing it and there aren't the proper oversights in
Right.
place. But when John was first elected as the state auditor, he's an engineer, he's not an accountant. And the prior CPA that had been in the office, 800 of 1,000 of the state agencies were non-compliant in their financial reporting. And that makes it just creates the environment where the kind of fraud that happened in Morgan County is allowed to happen because no one's doing the proper oversight and the proper checks.
That happened in Stansbury Park.
Yeah.
And it was 2 years, almost $1 million. And I'm looking at my agency going, how did you miss this? This is $700 a day.
Yep.
And it comes down to, even when I do the 501c3 with the party in our county, I make sure there's two of us on a signatory. I make sure that the treasurer and we share the books.
Yeah.
So I'm watching him, he's watching me, and we are in constant communication. But I've also ran a business before,
Yeah.
and business people don't mess that up because it'll
they do.
kill
I've
their
seen it in the private
business.
sector. But yeah, most people, and that's, people really care about their own money and they'll watch their own money really closely.
Yeah.
But government is not designed. We hear a lot about, well, we should be more efficient. We should be more like a business. But government is designed to be
Say
transparent.
this part real slow. Come on now.
Government is designed to be transparent, not efficient. So there's always that argument, well, that will take more time. We'll have to pay two people. But that's the way government is designed. You always need two sets of eyes on a financial transaction. That's just safe.
At least two.
And that's why everything's became an emergency.
Yeah, because
So
they don't want you to look.
We had
Everything
something
government's an
happen.
emergency.
Our
Exactly.
county also wasn't compliant. Isn't that right? When John Dougal first came in,
Yeah,
I
there-
believe
there
we had
were-
some issues.
Yeah, there are several counties. That's
Yeah.
one I'm looking at right now.
Is there any
So-
counties that were? Can we focus on the positive today?
There are counties that are really, really good, and it's kind of cyclical too, depending on because we do change who's in charge and who are in those elected positions,
and-
and sometimes it's easy for it to slip by.
Also, we'll compare it to a rodent problem, if you will.
Mm.
If you get rodents in your house, you start paying attention. You set more traps. Once they start going away, you quit tending to the traps, and they're gone. And you're happy for a bit. And you build.
You're referring to bureaucrats because
Did I
Yeah.
say snakes? It's snake
it is
problem.
a bureaucrat usually, right? It's not the actual elected. It's the
usually
bureaucracy
somebody in the
that
office. But actually, it was,
knows how to do
in
it.
Morgan, it was the county administrator.
Wow.
But no, it happens when you're comfortable. You don't pay attention.
Yeah.
I should have went
When
with
there's
ticks.
trust. Mhm.
Ticks or leeches. That's what. If you've
Yeah.
got a leech problem in a family pond,
Okay.
In
We got the
Utah-
metaphor.
yeah.
We got it.
but no,
All the disgusting things.
as
I
you
got
get
it.
comfortable. Well, I'm thinking
No one gets
parasites.
comfortable
Yeah.
in a leech pond.
As you get no, it's not a leech pond.
Have
It's
you
a
seen
pond.
Stand By Me?
It's a pond, but then leeches show up. Stansbury's going through it right now with the people eating algae, whatever they keep sending a report out about. But they, as you're comfortable,
People eating algae?
yeah, something like that. I
Bottom
don't know.
feeder, something like,
Like
that.
a
That's what I
flesh-eating
thought.
virus?
I don't know, something like that.
Or like people
Don't you read your
eating
mail?
algae?
Don't you read your mail you
I
get from
live on that
Stansbury?
lake, so my kids swim in it.
Yeah,
Are
there's
you
some
telling me
kind
that-
of algae in there. It's bad for you. So I call it people eating algae.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Welcome to the
it eats
circus,
people.
Tina.
But no, so they get comfortable and then, and then they'll get strict. And after it's straightened up for a couple of years, they'll still want to see everything. And then they'll get comfortable and they'll,
But the
you know.
sad part is some of these electeds come into this and it's happened.
Yeah.
And a lot of electeds take the brunt of the fault, and yet they didn't write these policies. They're not the ones who approved these payments or these things. And so I know of a couple situations where people have come in and they're like, well, what's happening? These books are a mess. And they couldn't be compliant until they actually came out and said, look, we're not compliant. Help us get
Exactly.
compliant.
And providing that support is part of what we do in the office as well. I'm currently helping a couple of other agencies with that same kind of thing. When people come forward and say, this just isn't right. That's what the hotline through the state auditor's office is for waste, fraud, and abuse. And we have 3 full-time people. We run them full-time over problems across
That's
the state.
sad, but it's good to know
Yeah,
that
it's good to know someone
that
has
you're
your
there.
back.
clocked
So,
30 hours overtime this week.
exactly.
And
Some
do
days
people,
are pretty discouraging.
call you, even business owners and governments, when they know they're not compliant and say, look,
Mhm.
we
do
just discovered this. Can you help us figure out who's doing this?
Yeah.
And
We
you
get all sorts
work with
of
law
time.
enforcement and all
There are
of
times
that.
like in some of the audits that happen up in cash, we did turn that over. After it reaches criminal charges, we have to turn it over to the AG, but we
Mhm.
have subpoena power and we have investigative power.
It's amazing. So who else is in the race?
I don't know. Is there
Perfect.
someone else in the race?
No, I mean,
I don't think so.
I hope that it's great and easy convention for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I hope
So-
so too.
I have lots of questions about like
Leeches.
how like is it a fun job? Is it
I wouldn't say it's fun, but I would, because we joke all the
intriguing?
time that we're destroying our faith in our fellow men one day at a time. Our office in general, but it's vitally important, and,
Oh,
and that's
very.
one of the reasons why I decided to run. Is I know what we do, I know why we do it, I know how important it is that we do it,
Mhm.
and I've experienced it from both sides. And I think too many times, especially in the larger, really professionally run counties, where the pool of applicants for or candidates for these positions is long. They forget what it's like to be in rural counties where you don't have all of the same choices and the pay isn't the same as
No.
it is in the larger counties.
They're part-time.
Yeah.
They make $20,000 a year. They're giving 40 hours a week of their time, but they're making $24,000, no benefits, nothing. And they have to keep a full-time job. So it gives our pool of applicants
Right.
shrinks greatly.
Exactly.
And then the knowledge of these people, some of them have never run a business. Some of them don't realize even the finances of their own household,
Right.
to the extent that you have to know in government. When it's
Yeah.
other people's money, you've got to be extremely diligent. That's why I got so upset about the Stansbury thing, because I'm like, I could see if it was a little bit, but
Yeah,
this is
30,000.
2 years of bidding missed. And we have a whole panel of folks. One's name was the treasurer, mind you.
Right.
Why did this happen? How did this happen? And you know that these people who are going to do this, they don't start out probably thinking they're going to
No.
take $1 million, but when they realize it's not missed,
Exactly.
they get smarter, right?
It gets tempting.
When you get away with it the first time, it creates the rationalization where they keep going. And usually the ones, the largest fraud that ever happened in the United States actually happened in Dixon, Illinois. For all of you accounting geeks out there, it's called All the Queen's Horses. There's a great documentary about this. It is fascinating. I've watched it several times, but it was actually in the hometown of Ronald Reagan, where they apparently trusted but didn't verify. And it's called All the Queen's Horses because she kept going. She found she could do it. And I can tell you exactly how she did it, but because she got away with it, she kept going. And she was known for her quarter horses. She put all of that millions of dollars that in a little teeny small town into quarter horses. She was known for her quarter horses and show horses.
She just kept buying horses and
Yeah.
buying horses.
How does the county recoup their money?
So that was a city, and it was coming out of their road fund.
That's insane.
Oh,
So it's fascinating to me how she did it, because she created another account and nobody's watching, but everyone had known her. She'd grown up there. They trusted her. She would never do that. So it was an employee in the office who turned her in. But that pattern is very, very similar when you see fraud. And even in my family, I have a very successful attorney who's for a brother, and he's had this happen. And
so
it was
like
a
he's
cute
had
little old lady who went to the temple every Thursday.
like an office secretary that. Well,
Yeah,
I want
to. That's why oversight. That's why that oversight and making sure that you're following the dual control, the checks and balances to the system are all there.
So who do you work for? Do you work for the public?
Yes.
Or are you a tool of the governor?
No, the auditor is independently elected
Right.
for a reason. And that oversight that separation is crucial.
Absolutely. Because you have to look at them also.
Yeah, we audit state government, and we audit a lot. So, for example, when we audited the tax commission over the property tax rules,
how did that feel? Hold on. Let's dig into the details.
Yeah.
I don't want to miss a minor detail of this.
That one. Yeah. So it was fascinating, but that's under the governor. He appoints the tax commission, and it's under their oversight that happens. So the separation of powers, especially in the auditor's office, is really important. It's really crucial. It's also one of the reasons why I committed from day one that I would not take donations or endorsements from any of the 1,800 agencies that we audit and those elected officials, because you have to have that separation. You cannot have that cloud of maybe you didn't say what needed to be said over an audit that you have. So.
And the fact that you're elected means you're accountable to the people.
Exactly. You answer to the people and only to the people.
And then when the people call you and say, hey, something's fishy, whether it's in the business I work for, whether it's in my county or my city, you are a neutral party that's going to check the books
Right.
and make sure that the laws are being followed. And I think all the offices, I hear the floating around that the AG should be appointed by the governor and the school board. And I'm thinking, why would we want to give that much power to one person
We
when
don't.
we believe in smaller government, but accountable government as well.
Right. And that, all you have to do is go back in time and look at Enron and WorldCom. And that tells you everything you need to know about why an auditor should be independent. But I could go on those other elected officials that there does need to be a separation. So
I totally agree.
And for everyone out there, I mean, the auditor is pretty much the only tool you have to hold a government accountable in real time.
that's true. So
With
on
the
the
AG's
audit,
office, right?
well, even with the AG's office. So when we were doing that audit, I ran into someone from the AG's office, one of their top attorneys, and she asked me, "Oh, so what are you working on now?" And I told her, and she said, "Oh, don't tell me anymore. I represent the agency." And I said, "Oh, that's interesting because I represent the people."
Well, no, the auditor,
That's how it goes.
Wow.
if there's money missing, if they're buying dumb stuff or having too many cocaine parties, whatever. Not that cocaine parties ever happen in government. Anyway, I digress. But the auditor is the way, that's the tool that the people, when I was in the military, there they called it inspector general,
Yep.
but it's the same
Mhm.
thing. It is the tool to correct an issue in real time.
Yeah.
Because they can show up and dig through all the books in real time and then give a report, and they're not tied to anything in there. Then they piss off and go elsewhere.
Are they under classes like lieutenants, captains, or does that not
The-
work against them? They could audit a general
Oh, yes.
and then they're independent. They don't have to.
Oh, yes. There was a group, Fort Hood, notorious for young ladies and young men disappearing out into the middle of the Texas desert over the last couple of years. The IG went down there and tore it apart. And Fort Hood is huge and has a lot of generals there. And the IG tore it apart.
So you're an accountant.
Yep.
How? You are so outgoing. You're just such a light to be around. I always say this when I meet an accountant that is just this
Yeah.
bright, shiny, bubbly person.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I expect you guys to be just quiet, dark
I
in
am
a
actually
corner.
a natural introvert. I'm not a natural extrovert. It takes some recovery.
I get that. You actually are probably going to need a long recovery after all this.
It's been, and I'm married to an engineer, so to get him to
Oh,
go with me
my
to all
gosh.
these things, we're really testing our limits for being around a
Sound
lot
like
of
a
people.
couple of wild and
Yeah.
crazy kids.
But I had listened to one of the other candidates. It's amazing to me how many of the candidates are accountants right now, and I think it speaks to the time we're in history that so
We're
many
done with lawyers.
natural introverts are now like, I can't watch this anymore.
That's it right
I
there.
have to get involved.
And that's what we talked about here earlier, that people have had enough. We're done. We are so done with what's happening all the time. It's insanity. We're electing the same types of people that say the same types of stuff, and they don't put it into action once they get that seat.
But aren't we living so prosperously?
Everything's great, especially for the elected class.
Yeah.
Oh, did I say that out loud?
Yeah, be
Yeah.
careful
Quiet part.
because you might be the elected class soon enough.
I might,
Yeah.
if you ever get kidnapped in the middle of the night and wake up in DC, you've been sent there with the job. Just
So how does that work? What if it's the federal government and
We do a lot. We audit. In fact, our single audit is over how the state uses federal funds. So we do
Mhm.
audit.
like the COVID funds?
But there is a lot more than just the COVID. So we get Medicare, Medicaid money, we get school money. So we do that audit every year. In fact, it just
How
came out a
often
couple of
did-
weeks ago.
Medicare and Medicaid hit.
So
I'll bet that keeps you busy right there.
that we audit that every year. And John released a statement and has over the last several years for how much of the state budget that is and how much more dependent we're getting on federal funds and what that means, because it does tie the hands of state government. It's always interesting to me because the state always starts out with, well, it's just free money from the federal government. And it's usually free the first couple of years, and then the strings start coming, and then the matching funds start coming. So then you're tied into a program that you it was free in the first place, but then the requirements cost you.
Who do you think who taught who? Was it? Do you think the federal government was taught by the 1980s drug dealer commercial playground guy? Or do you think he learned from the federal government?
Holly,
Because
Fred, really?
it's
This guy.
the same thing. It's the same plan.
Yeah,
you know, the
it's
first
kinda
couple
get
hits
you-
are free.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. It's like a
The
direct
first
bill.
one's
It is.
free.
I see where you're
Second
going.
one, bring a friend, and it's still
I
free.
have a question though. Is there any possible way, logically, that we could ever get out from underneath the thumb of the federal government financially?
Probably not one all at once, but one program at a time. And you could start in education, and probably should.
Thank you. Yes,
and start in
please.
education and go.
I'm gonna have to put a
I think it's
rating on
Florida
this
that's
show.
done
I
it.
know he loves
Yeah.
this kind of talk. If we could get
Yeah.
rid of the federal government, I mean, that's the thing though, you know, Medicare, Medicaid, education, a lot of people that's an entitlement. They feel that they're owed, and it's harder to take away than it is to give. And
Exactly. Once it starts, you can it's really hard to get rid of the program. And the requirements, the federal government is always they don't do anything really well. I don't know if anyone
No.
noticed this with COVID
Newsflash.
funding, especially they just don't do anything really
Purveyors of disappointment.
well. And the closer you are to the problem, the easier you are to see the solutions to the problem. The federal government should be not doing any of this.
absolutely.
Yeah, I would say
The Constitution doesn't give them
honestly,
the right to do
usually
that, what
the
they're
thing
doing.
that deals with it the best is the churches, your local church.
Exactly.
Like the young single mother who needs help because her husband ran off with a waitress or lady of ill repute, whatever.
Oh my! You gotta
She
get
goes-
so much detail. Like,
She goes to the bishop, and the bishop helps her out, and he's able to keep an eye on her and check on the
Exactly.
kids. And I am not a religious man. I am, but I think churches are good. And he says, come to church and bring your kids. And the kids get to socialize with, probably the worst kids in town, but they're still pretty good kids. I mean, and that's the best way. But if we leave it up to the state government, well, we know they're just going to throw money at the problem because it's not theirs. They don't care. And the federal government's even worse. They're going to take a loan, kill somebody in another country, then throw money at it.
can we get back to the
Sorry.
subject? So when the state does their budget,
Mhm.
I know that there are certain budgets that money goes into, and they're not allowed to touch. They have to go spent a certain way.
Yeah,
The same with
restricted
counties,
funds.
and pretty much every organization.
Mhm.
So do you audit the budget legislature votes on, or do you wait till it's already been
Yeah, and
implemented?
So it's after the spend. So we go through the departments and how they spend it, and how the state. So that's a major report. We do it every year. It comes out just before Christmas is when we're finishing it up. So it's a busy time.
Let's say that you do find discrepancies in a
Mhm.
certain department. Does the press find out about it, or do you just go right to that government agency and say you guys are in violation? And
Both.
okay, so you share it with the people.
Yeah. So and this is one of the areas I think I'd improve because nobody really knows. So I think you should be able to sign up for an agency. Like, let's say you're worried about what's happening in Stansbury and you want to know when the audits come out. So sign up
Heather,
just like for legislation that you can sign up to know when those audit reports come out, because in the back of those audit reports are usually the findings, and that'll give you the rundown over where the problems are, or if it's a clean report. But we do work with the agencies. We let them know before those findings come out. There's a little give and take sometimes over what about this? Well, what about this?
you
And-
actually help them maybe with
Yeah.
documentation that could be missing. You ask for that documentation.
Mhm.
There's that
Follow
back and forth.
Yeah, all the way through the process. And then but once the finding is set and we release the report, it's public.
See that this is an office that I don't think people even think
No,
about.
trust me, I know. I've been campaigning for it. Most people are really, really focused on the Senate and really, really focused on the governor or the AG's office because it's getting a lot of attention. But this is probably the most important.
I mean, this is what protects
'Cause this
my
is your
dollar,
oversight.
your dollar, our kids' dollar. Now, why is it? Why? Maybe it's something we're just missing. But why is it so hard to get our spending back to pre-COVID levels? Is it because you
It's like that crack
can't
analogy.
take it away.
It's like, because they get used to that number in their budget. And it's really, really interesting how when it's not your money, this is universally applied principle, I think. When it's not your money, you're free with it. It's absolutely astounding.
It's like renting a house.
OPP
When you're
money
renting
is
another
so
person's house, you
nice.
don't
You don't
treat
take
it
care
like
of it.
you would
Yeah.
your own.
Yeah. And so, you can never get enough of other people's money. That's
No.
what I've noticed.
No.
But I think that's where my background in tax, where I've spent 28 years across the table telling people how much money they're going to send the state and local government. And most people don't realize until I pointed out that you will send more money to the state government between sales tax, income tax, and
Oh, yeah.
property tax than you will ever send the federal government. And this is the oversight over that money.
Mm.
And it's crucial. And if we weren't going to do what we said we were going to do with it, give it back. Give it back. It should have stayed there. But the dirty little secret. Back to that audit you forgot.
We're going to
follow
need
up
to
on.
play slow jam R&B
Yeah.
over the background of this show the whole time.
You keep hearing that you've been given record levels of tax cuts. Right? How many times have you heard it? When you lower income tax by and I'm going to look at you when I say it. When you lower income tax by 0.3% while you're raising property tax exponentially, it's not a cut.
No.
That's a shift at best, but it's an increase. Look at the budget.
Or while you
Look at
inflate the
your
money.
finances in your own home right now.
Or while you inflate the money.
Yeah, well, that's
When
what's
you
happening.
kick the printers
So-
on and then lower tax rates.
I'm talking about state.
Yeah,
government.
she's talking about the state.
government.
Oh,
So when the legislature froze the school board rate on your property taxes, everybody's screaming and yelling at their local entities, at the counties and the school districts. But that rate that was frozen while property values were increasing was a state rate set by the legislature. They froze it for 4 years. Over those 4 years when property values were doubling, that's what happened with your property tax. That was happening during the same time they were giving you a 0.1% cut in your income tax.
This is
That's
insane.
not a cut. So you deserve an auditor who not just understands it, but is willing to say it.
Well, this is something I have to know and Eric says that Eric Gumbrecht says you're just a stellar human being. And this is true.
Thank you, Eric.
And I know you through political circles, and I've seen you. And how tall are you? Are you 5 feet?
I'm the other 4'11" cannon. You know that one they have the statue of at the Capitol? Her statue is not 4'11".
yes, the lady,
4 foot
the
11.
lady that was there last night representing you, she was, I don't know, 5'8". And I said,
5'11".
You're not the Tina I talked to at the Lincoln Day
But I
dinner.
can tell
My
you,
friend
this
Sue.
And she
woman
said,
is vicious, and she's amazing and smart and kind.
Well,
and
thank you.
I just, it's so many people speak so highly of you that have
Yeah.
worked with you.
Everyone
and-
does.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
and everybody, I really like Dougal, and I've always gotten along with him. And he's just, I get it that you kind of are an island in
Yeah.
this job. You can make friends everywhere. At the end of the day, a really good auditor knows
not,
where
yeah.
the boundaries are. And I mean, you give
Yeah.
the shirt off your back, but you're still going to audit you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only friends you could probably truly make are people who are, the
people.
homeless people, they don't.
Well, people that
actually,
elect you.
because we don't audit people, we only audit
Yeah.
government, and that's who we answer to is the people. But I said that in Morgan when I was getting such pushback from my fellow commissioners over implementing generally accepted accounting principle. Apparently, it's not as generally accepted as I thought. But my response back was, I didn't get elected to be your friend. I got elected to represent the people, and this is their money.
Now, you were the auditor for Morgan County.
No, I was on their commission, but that's
you were a county commissioner?
yeah. So we were a council that called
Wow.
ourselves a commission, and then they officially made us a commission just as I was coming off. So we are now officially a commission, but we had all of the legislative and administrative powers, but called ourselves a council. Same as Grand County had the same weird form where it's not actually what it says. it
Eric
is.
says a lot of
But-
governments have history of learning after the fact. They had mismanaged funds and assets. Do you have any additional ideas for helping prevent these issues?
So this is one of the supports we give to local government. So we have a full-time person who this is what their job is we do a lot of work and a lot of trainings, and then making those trainings easier and quicker, so that, because most people don't realize that the clerk is doing your finances, but ultimately the financial statements and the policies that control those are done at the council or commission level. They are who are ultimately responsible. I think you have an appointed
We have a
administrator
county
now,
manager,
a county
Mhm.
manager.
and he runs the
Yeah.
exec or the
The exec-
administrative.
Yeah,
And then our executive is our part-time
County
county
council.
council.
yeah. So they
And that's
actually have
new.
final oversight over the financial statements. So how those are done, are prepared, and that's what happened in Morgan with that embezzlement. That's who took the heat. It was the council who
Of
took
course,
the heat because they
you
are
have to have
ultimately
the-
responsible for it. And so implementing and making sure that those policies are happening and that there is a check and a balance between the treasurer and the clerk, and that's the way it is designed to be.
So you didn't have a county auditor
No, we had a clerk auditor.
because we have
But
the
that's
office
actually-
separated now. We
Yeah.
did have clerk auditor. Now it's an individual auditor
Yes.
and the county clerk, which I think is brilliant.
I think, yes, you can't audit yourself. So it's really hard for a clerk to audit what they're doing. The offices are really, should be separate.
Mm.
But again, this is internal audit and not necessarily external audit. So that you will also have a financial statement and financial auditors that will audit those financial statements annually too.
So we just sat through a state of the state address that told us how great we're doing as a
Mhm.
state.
I know.
And you being this brilliantly smart woman who understands numbers and probably understood far more about the numbers or what wasn't being said out loud that maybe you could tell us, because we are being told that.
I'm running for office. This is getting more and more dangerous as the day goes on.
Well, I guess what I'm asking.
But honestly, I can tell you, because we talk about it, we're the best managed state, but we don't talk about, and we talk about how much the record tax cut. When your budget is increasing exponentially, when you're increasing every year, but you're cutting a little bit off the growth off the top, is that really a record cut? Because the budget didn't get cut.
That's my problem. It's
The
they
amount
need
that
to
you were
start cutting
charging.
the budget.
Yeah. And there is such thing as an economy of scale. That doesn't happen when you allow the growth to continue to happen as more people come in and the revenues increase. Are you really cutting back? And like we talked about before, that shift, while they're cutting that small amount, but they're allowing the property tax set by the state to continue, because property tax is not intuitive to most people. That's number based. And as your value rises, the percent rate of the property tax should shrink and go down so that the amount of money collected is the same. When the legislature freezes the rate, as your property values rise, the amount of revenue they collect rises too.
It seems like they're playing a game where they got the cup and the ball.
It seems to me they're telling you one thing when
Did
they're
they
doing
do
it
that
right.
on purpose?
And counties
Was that
depend
a-
on that rate. I know when
But there's
it's
two ways.
changing.
Yeah, because counties have to do truth in taxation. The legislature does not.
See, that's what
What-
gets me.
Was it known when they did this? Do you think they knew, okay, we'll let property values rise so we gain more property tax, but we're going to look good because we're going to do this income tax cut and tell everyone about that, but we're going to keep this one hidden.
I don't know that all the legislators understood what
That
that
could
meant
be it.
to freeze the rate.
Because I don't think they have the intent per se to, I mean, some might because they want perception and optics, if you will, of what it's going to look like. But I think that a lot of people get into legislator and it's their first time on the job and they're learning on the job and what maybe they don't understand, because this stuff, would make my eyes glaze over because I'm not a numbers person, but for you, this is just black and white to you and you can see it.
Right.
But my question is, why isn't the state auditor sitting up there when budgets are being discussed and it's being explained to these new legislators, these people, and say, look, you guys freeze this. Here's what happens. Here's what happens if you do this. Here's what happens if you do this. It's like you are an island alone and they're not going to bring you in.
No.
And you can't force your way in.
No.
But as an American or as a Utahn, I want you at the table.
Well, the time for being at the table is after when the recommendations come out over an agency. So let's go back to the tax commission. And property tax. So the tax commission response was our revenue is the same. But if you're getting the revenue from the wrong person and the wrong people, it's being applied unfairly, then it shouldn't matter that the revenue is the same, but they don't see it that way. They only see it for how much money they're bringing in. And I think that's where it goes back to. If you lose sight of who you took it from and how it is actually applied, and that's where the expertise in knowing how tax works matters. Because even though the revenue is the same, in property tax, when one property value is increased while another one is left alone in assessments, that's a shift from the person who didn't have their taxes or their values increased to the person who did. And you're seeing in counties across the state where properties had not been reassessed in 10, 15, 20 years. That's a shift. And even though the revenue is the same to the state, that does not mean that the fairness is there at the local level, at the individual level. So to come back and to say that that's where, if you go out on transparency, transparency.utah.gov, and you look at the property tax tool, that's why it's there, because they didn't even know how to bring that data in to even do the beginning analysis. Our office did in 2 weeks with one part-time person what the state tax commission had not done in 30 years.
That's insane.
We are good at what we do. We're 45 people. We're over 1,800 agencies. We are a lean, mean fighting machine. It is amazing.
Will you give me that website again?
Yep. Transparent.utah.gov. And you can find all sorts because we collect all of the financial transactions from those 1,800 agencies. Transparent Utah gives you a wealth of information about every agency out there. There's a school district or a
Is
school
Utah
one.
spelled out, or is it UT?
Utah, all spelled out at utah.gov. Transparent.utah.gov. I've had them put it on my business cards now because I tell everyone about it. It's awesome.
Hey,
My property taxes, I mean, they go up constantly. So I know I'm being assessed constantly. I think we are out here.
I don't even know if we're being assessed. I think
the
they're
other
just
part of
doing
that
a
is
general
they-
raise, aren't they?
because you had a really good assessor, and
Yeah.
I like Scott. Even we share the same. My maiden name is Parkinson, so I liked him. Anyway,
Awesome. Yeah, Jake's the best. And now we've got Joy Peters, who was in his
Sorry, I said
office.
Scott.
And
There's a lot of Parkinsons out here too.
yeah, I think I had an uncle somewhere in this line, but when you have an assessor who's doing a good job in a county, but you have another county where you don't have that happening, it's a shift. We talked about the state rate that's going statewide. That's a shift from the counties who are actually doing the assessments correctly. It's a shift from the ones who aren't doing it correctly to the ones who are. So you have to make sure that that's fairly applied across the state. And that was the job of the tax commission.
that's how I feel about just working with the other chairs that I work with.
Yep.
And with my county clerk, for example. I know I have an amazing county clerk. Not all counties do.
Right.
And when they're not working in unison, even though they try to, and they try to work together and all of that, but when it's not in the same in my county as it is in someone else's, we have an amazing auditor. And I mean, at least Allison that I know, she's great.
Right.
If other counties aren't auditing the same way ours is, that would be a problem.
Yeah.
Especially for people leaving a county and going to another.
Right.
And budgets from the state going
And,
out.
and you see that across all of the different things. So let's talk about the same thing happening in elections, but you've got a multi-county race. So it does impact, but in property tax, it came back to the state tax commission to make sure that it was equitable and fair across the state, not just within the counties, but among the counties to make sure that that was happening. But you can't do that if you don't have the data and the analytical ability to do it.
It's amazing. David Weiss wants to bring up Bitcoin, and has the
I
state
don't get
ever
to audit
considered putting some of the funds into Bitcoin? Is that even a viable option for governments yet?
So this is a question for Marlo, because Marlo gets to decide on these things. But and Marlo's fantastic, as most people know.
Yeah, but how do you audit Bitcoin?
So once Marlo invests it, we don't necessarily go and invest and audit the fund that it's in. So it's more of an investment when it gets over there. So the investment side of it is under Marlo, but you wouldn't be directly putting your immediate tax collections into Bitcoin and as part of the process that we audit. So it's one step removed. Once it's in a fund, that's when it would go into Bitcoin.
So do you love working with Marlo?
I do. I
think
really,
he's
really love Marlo.
amazing.
Yeah. And Elaine is pretty awesome too.
Yeah.
why.
Dave
is.
is
They are cool.
Dave is he's a safety guy. He's rather dry. Probably fit in well in an accountant situation.
He's probably an
Anyways,
accountant.
he's asking you
He's
to
more of
hire
an
him.
engineer, right?
No, he's not an engineer. Not that much personality. Anyways, he's a safety guy, and
We hire,
but
we
no, he
have-
says hire
so-
me. He's in Florida right
Yeah.
now.
Hire
Yeah.
you from where? You coming
So-
home?
No,
brother?
I would suggest Dave would be great in one of those pay attention to all the little fine
Oh yeah,
details
but you have
jobs.
to come home.
Like he would definitely stand there, pants pulled up over his navel and a tie tucked into him, and
See, Fred,
pocket protector.
I'm ridiculous.
Yeah. So in our office, we have a lot of people that we hire. So it's not just accountants in our office. 37% of our office are CPAs. We have MPAs, we have MBAs, we have a journalism major. He is actually a really great investigator. I won't use his name because then people won't spill
Yeah,
the beans
yeah.
as readily as they do, but he's fantastic.
That's
Everybody tells
great.
him everything.
I'll bet I could put him for the
Yeah.
janitor position. I
Well,
can
and we have
run
data
a
analytics.
mop. Yeah,
All these
I can't
big
do that
words
either.
you're
either.
using.
You keep no.
His eyes glazed over.
IQ 43,
Janitorial?
43, 44.
44.
It depends on the day. If I
Custodial.
have my alphabet, custodial,
Security.
maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not usually not even smart enough for that, but I can open doors for people.
So before we go on a
You can
tangent,
do a receptionist because I think you can smile pretty.
sit there and
But
do
I
my
get in
nails.
trouble for that one.
I would love to know about your family and about why. I mean, I get it. You watched.
Yeah, I want to
You
put the
watched
family
this
back up on
happening,
there.
and you're finally like, I could retire, or I could put my money where my mouth is and fix it, or
Right. And stay
get some
involved.
change.
Stay
And
involved. And it was, John's also a really good salesman along with David
I have
Fergal,
no doubt.
because he talked me into this, and I kept saying, John, I wanted to get out of the political side of this because it does get a little wearing and it's hard to lose. I will admit it's really tough to lose.
Plus, it's hard when in politics you
Yeah.
you never know because people change,
Yeah.
and then you trust people, and then they let you
There are
down.
there are a lot
and
of,
then you make a decision, and half the people are mad at you all of a sudden, and you're just standing up for something you believe in, and you're trying to do right. Your intentions always are right, but you're still going to piss half the people off. with
at
whatever
least,
you
and
do.
especially in audit, you're not anyone's friend.
Right.
This is not the position to go in thinking you want to be everybody's best.
Well, how
bud.
is Dougal so loved? Like everybody loves
The
him.
people love Dougal.
That's true.
The
Okay.
people love Dougal.
fair.
One of my favorite stories is in one of the audits we were doing, and we were there. There's usually a team that comes in, and we were discussing what we'd found, and the manager got really angry and really upset, and he started yelling and he started cussing and
Cussing out the
dishonest.
auditors.
Yeah, oh yeah, and
That's a
you're
good move,
dishonest
Fitz.
and deceitful, and I'm like, what? You don't even know me? And he's John Dougal, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well,
As long as you're talking about John, I guess we're fine.
you're like, that went over my head.
Tell us about your family. You got a husband who's an aerospace engineer.
Oh, he's just an
Yeah.
engineer.
I'll bet
My
his
husband's an engineer.
conversations are higher that they couldn't even blow the wig off Abraham
Yeah.
Lincoln.
I'm
And then,
proud of Dave.
and are all those your kids or
Yes.
in-laws? What do we got there?
So no, I have four kids.
Uh-huh.
They're all in their 20s, and
I can't
my
believe
husband-
that. You look so young
Oh,
to
thank
me.
you.
Yeah.
No, I'm pretty old, but I was ready to retire, and
Pretty
so was
old. I
Dave.
mean, to 33, it's a tough
Yeah,
time.
it's hard to sell that with a 29-year-old daughter now. But yeah, Mackenzie's an attorney with Dorsey and Whitney.
The one on the right or the one on the
the
left?
one on the,
the
right,
right.
the far right,
I'll audit which side's right or
Yeah.
left.
and then
They
the one
did
on the
teach me
left.
that.
Kelsey is a journalism major, and so she's
Oh.
writing the next great American novel. And Jacob and
Wow.
Jacob is still in school, and Isaac is a video editor. He has his own company.
Awesome.
Outstanding.
Oh, you're so
Yeah.
proud.
No,
What a
that's
great
good.
family.
That's good. And you've got kids that are embarking successfully. I like the sound of that.
They're
Well,
awesome.
what do you think about? I mean, did they all go to state universities here in the state?
Mackenzie got her law degree at BYU. She did her undergraduate there, and Kelsey went to UVU.
So do you wonder, like, who's auditing our colleges?
We are.
And then What do you
Do
find?
you know in the legislation that passed this time, most people don't realize that on the DEI and on the
Yeah.
transgender bathroom bill, we're the enforcement on both of those.
Really?
So it's not just
You're
the,
the heavy.
money laundering, the
No, it's
auditing, but
statutory. Yeah.
you are auditing the way they do policy, the way it's enforced, any complaints that it's not being enforced.
On every
Goes to you.
state policy. So we do performance
See,
audit
that's
too.
interesting.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah,
I did not.
I did not know
Yeah, we
that
do.
Now, what
you
about
guys did.
statutory
What about
compliance.
BYU, where BYU's not a state school?
We
It's
don't. We
private.
don't. Yeah, we don't audit BYU, but we did look into when I first came on. I did review that one because they did look into BYU Police Department where it was using. So there are some things that cross over when they're using state resources and finances, and anyone who gets state funding, we also audit.
Mm.
That's incredible.
So
Okay.
but it's 1,800 agencies. It's a lot.
How
well, I'm
big is
sure.
your office?
45 people.
That doesn't seem
1,800.
like
When he
enough.
says he's frugal, he is not kidding.
No kidding. Are you
Yeah.
going to be as frugal? Are you going to hire more people? What do you think you
well,
need?
the legislature keeps adding to our list of things we need to do.
Then you need more
and
people.
You can't do that with we're tapped out at this point for what we can handle with, and when you add in the transgender investigations
huge.
and the DEI and where that's going to go, that's a lot of time.
That's going to be,
That we're so good at what we
and
do.
that one is just an
They keep
emotional.
giving us more.
That one's just an emotional draw too.
Can you?
That
Yeah.
the anytime when it comes to any of these new things, I'm not saying this to be rude, but there's no logic involved in any of it. It's all emotion on every side, and that's got to make it so hard to
Yeah, it's
even
to put
get
a
through to
team together
people.
for that is a little more challenging than I think
Yeah.
most people realize.
And then, do you have to do public schools?
Yes,
That's
all government. So
that's
state,
not enough people in
county,
your
city,
office.
school districts, universities. We subcontract out to CPA firms across the state. But what you're finding is, believe it or not, people don't necessarily they're not going into audit and accounting the
No,
way they used
I'm
to.
sure they don't.
So we struggle, and so do some of the CPA firms across the state are pulling back on the amount they want to audit too, because it's hard to keep people in the profession. So there's some unique challenges that it made it really a difficult decision for me, because nobody wants to be the one who comes in and has the wheels come off.
What
Yeah.
can you do to draw more people into the profession?
You
'Cause
have to be
or
really
can
awesome, so
AI
everyone wants
you
to be
do.
an auditor.
You have to be awesome, but what can we do as a community? Because
It's
I'm
important.
Get our girls and boys
accountants are
to get their degrees.
always have a secure work,
Mhm.
financially successful.
Yeah, but I thought AI could take over accounting.
Not
in a
all of
lot
it. So I tell
careers.
people in my career, a good tax accountant will save you more than they will ever cost you, because those are complicated rules and how they apply.
Especially if
is
you run your
individually.
own business, you make
Yeah.
over, say, 200,000 a year.
Oh, yeah.
Mandatory.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
but what can you do to draw people in? Because everyone, I mean,
I
it
think
doesn't
getting
sound
people-
fun, but everyone
Getting
wants.
people aware of what we do and why it's important is part of why, as I've been campaigning, I tell everyone about Transparent Utah. I tell everyone about, go out and look, see what we do. It's really important. And it's not necessarily, like I said, it wasn't where I didn't start my career thinking, oh, I'm going to run for state auditor. In fact, 2 years ago, I would have called you crazy.
Yeah, you were already planning
Well, how about-
cruises and beach vacations in your mind, probably.
But it's so crucial that we do this, that, yeah,
It is.
it's
we
important
need our
that we
young
need
people,
more people
to
get involved.
Yeah.
to
How do
get
we get
excited
more
about
kids involved in
numbers.
this?
And STEM needs to be pushed in
Yeah,
schools.
numbers,
And
STEM.
young ladies that love numbers. Some of the best auditors or accountants I know are women.
That's
And
another thing. It does not care about gender. It cares that you pay attention to each line, that you
we have to love
Right.
it.
pay
I
attention to
think, too.
detail.
The attention to detail, but I
You would
still
think
believe.
with autism on the ride, you'd just be packed with
So
people.
my two on the spectrum are not. They don't
They don't want
one
to
of
do
them wants to do
it.
it. County Kelsey's gonna
I
end up there,
watched
think.
Rain Man, and he would count stuff in jars.
They may be an engineer. I don't know.
Oh, there you go.
I think that's something that we've talked about a lot, is that our colleges are doing a disservice to our young people, because it is all about emotions. And
What you
yeah,
can get
it's crap.
a minor in
And
Taylor
then-
Swift,
Okay, and then but then
BYU.
when you get these young people who are thriving, I mean, it's more than just oh, I like numbers. It's like our county clerk. She absolutely loves a good spreadsheet. And if she's not reading one or
Quit
found
selling
one,
her, she'll steal her.
then she wants to.
No, trust me, I might. She's
She-
really good.
She's
got
Stop
outstanding.
interrupting me. She wants to invent the spreadsheet.
Right.
So like she's start to finish, loves it. It's her passion. It's something that, and she's like, I know I'm a huge nerd. We need nerds like that
Yeah.
because it's people like that that actually can affect change, that
Mhm.
can keep things steady, and that can be far more transparent, right?
Yeah.
Because they can look for the holes.
Well, in audit, in addition to loving the numbers and loving the analytics, you do have to have a backbone because you're not necessarily
yeah.
saying the fun things. You're saying what needs to be said.
I don't think people are ever excited when you show up. Are they?
Not usually.
The people
Not usually.
outside that called you. So what do you dress up for as Halloween? You dress up like a
Myself
barbarian?
now, but I've had that joke forever. It's the one day I dress as my true self. I'm a witch every year.
Every year.
Not a witch, you're a warrior. You're like a
Show up in an IRS outfit.
oh.
I mean,
You
there
know,
is
I
a
used to-
worse
I used
person.
to joke about that in college. That I was going to be an IRS auditor because it was the only way someone my size would ever strike terror in the heart of anyone.
Oh, that's true.
So let me ask you this question. I know the IRS auditors, you have an armed wing of them. I went to a couple of schools with them. Is there a state auditor armed wing?
No, we subcontract that out.
Do you?
So we do have, like I said, we have subpoena power and we have investigative authority. But when it comes to actually armed surveillance, no, we'll turn that over to the AG. And
So
allow
do you?
him to-
I assume you have to do some forensics regarding computers and all of that. Do you ever outsource that to the FBI? Do you do it with the AG's office?
The
or-
FBI came in and met with John a couple of weeks ago and offered their services on some things. And so it is possible.
Probably like if you had to crack a computer or something.
John
they've
likes to keep things a little closer to the vest than the FBI. It doesn't like to bring the federal
I don't
government in on
blame
anything.
him.
So, yeah,
That's so. What do you see?
I'd rather not. I would rather bring in a really good forensic accountant. We've been working with one that's done some work for us in some counties, and amazing
People you can
Amazing.
trust
Yeah.
that are going to just
Amazing.
give it to you straight. So tell me about what you see your administration looks like. Do you see it growing? Do you obviously probably need more people? Is there any reins that are going to be put on the state? And is there, I mean, you're trying to educate people right now.
Yeah.
And now more than ever, because you guys, it's an election year and never will you ever have the power to get this type of stuff reined in than during an election year.
Yeah, I see a lot of the trajectory, the direction John has taken it is fantastic. And I want to keep that data analytics piece really moving forward and then bring a little more transparency into it in the audits that we do and letting more people know and more people aware of what we find, because the more people that are aware, the more embarrassment that is shown, it's more light goes on it, the quicker the problem gets fixed. So the more people that are aware, the better. So I see that changing. And then the direction is really going to depend a lot on the legislature, because we're really good at what we do and they keep giving us more. That direction is really determined by the legislature on the growth. OLAG does a lot of audits. They're more performance audit than they are financial, but the independence of OLAG is always a little bit, it doesn't have the same independence for the result that the state auditor's office does. So I think we do a better job there. Sorry, OLAG.
Do they
What's OLAG?
Office of the Legislative Auditors.
Oh.
So do you ever offer, I don't know, training for new legislators to explain
I think that'd be a really,
some of this?
I think it would be a really good thing to do. I don't know that we've done it in the past because we do local government training.
Yeah, I'd love to
But-
see my legislators go
Yeah,
in
come
and sit down
see.
with the
That's
state
a really
auditor.
good idea.
Because they're the
I'm gonna
ones
add that
voting.
to my list. Thank you.
Of course.
No, that's good. Yeah. They're
But if they're the ones
Their
voting for
freshman
these
year.
things,
Yeah, so that they actually know how taxes work and how it's applied, and because you do find that nobody wants to have a big fiscal note on a bill, but so they think if they push it into a fee or somewhere else that it doesn't have that, or you can push it off to somewhere.
optics.
Yeah, it's the optics of it, and they really don't understand always
What they're
what that
giving up
means. Yeah,
for
what that
optics.
means.
Mm.
Yeah.
But neither do the people who put them there.
Exactly.
And unless the populace is educated and understands, I mean, again, legislators are just people like you and I who decide I'm going to be a legislator, and they run and they get in there and they're learning, and the people teaching them have been there a while. And there's usually an agenda for either side, but this is information that affects our everyday lives.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
right now with inflation the way it is, with interest rates the way they are, with the fact that we don't ever get to own our property,
Yeah.
and we are always paying taxes on every damn thing,
Yeah.
everything, even
Everything.
after we're
And
dead.
then when you die, your kids pay the rest of it.
Exactly. So, and Utah is unique. We talk about it again. We go back to the best managed state, but Utah taxes income, property, and sales.
Yeah,
That is not
it's a
standard.
trifecta.
Yeah, they call it the three-legged stool to keep it from being impacted by inflation, but it also is keeping it from being really known how much money you're sending them.
Mhm.
So,
Like, how much out of a dollar does a average Utahn get to keep of their money to the Utah state tax? Because we're paying taxes on gas, we're paying taxes on food, we're paying taxes on, I think, medical, we're
Mhm.
paying taxes to this property tax.
Paying tax on everything. And then you've got to declare your federal rebate
Yep.
from the year before.
right, yeah.
I mean, like, what's the? I mean, we're
So
keeping
when you
what,
take- when
40
you-
cents out of a dollar?
Yeah, when you take into consideration the federal taxes, that's usually what I tell business people: 50%
Yeah.
in tax.
This is crazy. I mean, I'd love
If
having
you
a
hire
will.
a good accountant.
Well, if you hire a good accountant, we might get it down to 45, 48,
Ooh.
44.
But
like it.
so my biggest argument
But there
here.
are some advantages to owning your own business, and I tell people that
Mhm.
that's one of the reasons why why
You get a
I
write off
struggled
stuff. You get
to stay in tax accounting, because at this point in time, the only people paying tax are W-2 employees,
Yeah, which
and
is
it
a
gets
lot
really,
of people.
really frustrating.
and you can roll a lot of property into the business. There's a lot of
Yeah,
things you
there's a
can do.
lot of advantages to owning
Mhm.
your own business, but W-2 employees do not have that same opportunity for those write-offs. So there are two things you can learn from that: buy a rental property or run your own company.
Mhm.
But W-2 employees are where it's hitting the hardest, especially in an
Yeah.
inflationary market.
And right now we're in a market where inflation is ridiculous from federal all the way down. Housing, there's a housing shortage.
So
and then-
so let's stop right there, because this is another one of those things that probably should be said legislatively. What's inflation? It's too much money chasing too few goods. How long have we been hearing we're 35,000 housing units short? 10 years now?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So what happens when you add more money to that market?
you
Too
would
few goods.
assume.
Mhm.
More money in the market. You just raise the price.
Why can't we
the
get
state
the
putting that gift to that
The freeze.
the free well, they put out that grant for new construction, not existing. My oldest, we showed that picture. She just bought a 1927 farmhouse. She did not qualify for the 40,000 from the state of Utah because it only goes to new construction. But that is not what the young are usually getting into. Their first home is usually an older
It's
used
a
home.
starter home.
Yeah, this is not what it is being sold as a way to fix the housing market. That's not what this is. This is a gift to a developer.
the housing market's messed
A
up,
lot
and
is
it's
giving
not.
to developers right now.
And
out of
it's
our
not
legislature.
well. I mean, we've got a
How many people are gonna
legislature
listen to this?
full of developers, and it's not just that. But look at the houses being built. Is there okay?
We're the fastest
You're
growing county
28.
right now.
You're
in the state.
28 years old.
Yeah, 28.
Remember
With
when
a
you first
29-year-old
bought a
daughter.
house, they were building new houses that were 2 and 3 bedroom houses, right?
Right.
I'll bet there's not a 2 or 3 bedroom house that's a standalone house built in
Yeah,
the state right
they'll
now.
do it with condos or with
Townhomes,
townhouses.
condos, that's it.
but not.
They
yeah.
won't do a standalone house that small, which was the starter home.
Which all of us grew up
Which
in a
was
house that small.
You started out, you bought that home, built some revenue up in that, and then sold it to move up or use it as a rental for the continuing.
Now let's think about that for a young family who wants to have a child. Do you really want to have a child in an apartment with nowhere to run?
No,
And that makes it really, really difficult, even for a young couple with a dog.
Yeah.
It makes it really, really
Mhm.
difficult.
I'm glad you said it because I was going to say that. Even a
Yeah.
dog. Like
Well, and they
something-
can't. These
can
new
barely
kids
afford the
can't
apartment
get
as it
into
is.
them.
Exactly. But
So
we are the third most expensive housing market in the country.
which is a
Third.
huge leap.
The
because we used to
legislature-
be one of the most affordable.
Exactly.
the legislature should be ashamed of themselves for that, for not sitting down and focusing on how to correct that.
Well, let's think about it for a minute. So you've got the governor's office of economic opportunity.
Mhm.
Why would they be incentivizing businesses to relocate to Utah when you have a housing shortage? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
There's no reason to do it. If you're already short, maybe we back off of that.
We just had a guest on here a few weeks ago from Summit County talking about this development happening in
Yeah.
Summit that is absolutely insane. And
The old Walmart up there.
the circles they've been running around with the developers, and then the council wins their case fighting them, and all of a sudden the council's like puts their winnings on pause. This development would add millions of people up in Summit. With the Olympics coming, the traffic would be hours on hours. And these homes, they said affordable housing was 25% of, what was it, 700,000? So
Yeah.
affordable homes would be in
But
the
it's-
$300,000 range.
It's affordable.
And affordable is relative.
And
And
it's-
around here, we've got nothing but townhomes going up in mass.
Mhm.
But they're
So-
all $400,000.
Yeah. But you're seeing the tax incentives that are happening for the developers over high density and the transportation plan. So having been in county government, I actually know how they incentivize
Yes, the
that.
transit
Yeah,
was the
the
biggest
transit.
issue.
Mhm.
And that was it. They wanted this transit deal. And
Yeah,
so
and
did the governor's office.
And it can only happen around the high density. They're incentivizing that kind of development. And there's a reason why they do it. We haven't even touched PIDs and what happens with PID,
All right. What's a PID?
a public infrastructure district.
Okay.
So a public infrastructure district is where, let's say a developer decides they're going to put in a development in an area. Usually the developer would come in, put the roads, the sewer, the electrical, all of the infrastructure into the project. A PID allows that developer to bond, a tax bond on property tax for the cost of that infrastructure. And then that payment on that bond is paid by the people who move into that area after the developer is long gone.
So it's almost like they're just building sports stadiums. It's the same thing.
Yeah. So basically what they're doing is now even more profit comes out of it because the cost of the development now got passed on to whoever lives there for the next 30 years.
And does that look like an HOA or something?
It's
Just on
another
top of
line
the
on
house.
their tax bill that they don't even know it's there until after they've
So
bought and
it's-
they get their first tax
So
bill.
part of their city and county
Oh,
tax package.
Okay,
It's
I
a
have
special
a lot
infrastructure
of dear
district.
friends of mine.
Yeah, I'm called the
that are-
little black rain cloud.
Yeah.
I enjoy everywhere I go.
I have a lot of dear friends of mine that are in real estate, and I do know a couple of developers. And it's like lawyers. We all know lawyers. Everyone hates a lawyer till they need one.
Mhm.
But I think our legislature is really full of developers,
Yeah.
and we've got a big lobby for
Yeah,
realtors. And
Utah and Colorado were the only two states that do a PID. But the reason I know is PIDs are also monitored by our office. So we see them come in and it's,
but Utahns
it's-
don't know they
it's-
exist.
Yeah.
Until they go, what is this?
Yep.
And they call and they're directed. See, this to me feels so shady. And I don't know how this ends because counties like ours, we're going to have to move up, not out, because we don't have the space. Our lands are
Right.
so limited. And Washington County, same thing. Just we're so limited. And if these little dealings are going on, how does this end? What is this housing burst going to be?
It
Are we
makes
all going to be upside
everything
down?
It makes everything unaffordable. So you think you're moving into high density because it will be more affordable. But if you're paying another line on your property tax,
Yeah.
think about your property tax bill now.
Ugh.
And it's another line that's on there for 30 years. And there is no check to make sure that the cost of that bond was actually what the cost of the infrastructure was. It is crazy.
Yeah, like who decides how much is an actual bid they get on streets? And why isn't the government requiring that money down from developers? Because it's the government that has to maintain those streets and that water and everything else.
So, but
Why are these developers
all of
not
them-
having to
so-
foot the bill first?
So all of that typically that was done by the developer going in and getting all of it had to all be signed off on. Now the cost of that it's the taxpayer, because then the county or the city that is over that area will collect the same the same property taxes that were there for anyone else
Unbelievable.
to pay for the maintenance. It is the cost of the development that got put into the PID.
You are a little rain cloud.
I am sorry.
But I'm so happy to know this. I swear we need to.
No, this is important.
We need to share this with as many people as possible. And I get it. You're friends with everyone in politics, but I also know that I really do understand that you can't have friends, not with this job.
No.
Because you may have to investigate a friend of yours who is in a political office or whatever. So that's.
Well, you can't have friends in public life.
This is what I'm saying.
so
If the people can trust you,
Right. That's why
and you're
I
the
said,
watchdog, that's amazing.
Yeah. That's why I said I will not take a donation or an endorsement from anyone
Perfect.
who I am over auditing. And that's 1,800 agencies with elected officials or appointed officials in them. That limits my donation pool greatly.
Oh, it does.
And my endorsement pool. My opponent has not taken that same stand. And I worry about it for that reason. If you understand audit, you would have made the same commitment, because even if it wasn't tainted, it has the look and the feel of a tainted result if you have to audit someone that you've taken money from.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Optics. Again, optics.
Oh. Well, not just that, but just them to sit and threaten you for next go around.
Exactly.
You know, where right now, if you don't take money from someone, they're like, I'm going to get you when you run again. And you're going to be like, you know, you're going to get me for me correcting you ripping off the people. That's an endorsement as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
I
where
love
if someone
that you're
gave you
going
money
for the people. I think that's what's missing. Dougal is
that's what's missing.
awesome, but it is missing. It's missing from this. Look, I'm accountable to you. I'm not
slid that
accountable.
softball real slow
to
across the plate.
I'm not accountable to the governor. I'm not accountable to the lobby. I'm accountable to you, the voter, and that's something like. I mean, Dougal supports all the counties.
Right.
He's at all our events. We've always loved him. He is very cheap, which bless him. It's awesome because I learned today what the auditor actually does. And I've been in politics now for I can't even know. I don't even know how many years I've been chair or as a state delegate. I've just always known that the auditor just makes sure that the books are right. Yada yada. I forget. And after having this issue we did in Stansbury, it was Dougal that I called because I didn't know, how do we deal with this? They're a taxing entity. They're taking money from us for these projects we don't agree with. And they're doing this in the shadows because nobody bothers to show up to the meetings and argue with them. And even if they did.
But the meetings aren't even really announced. So, I mean, it's hidden.
It's just very.
All sorts of ways.
Behind. Yeah, government is complicated, but the transparency only works when people are paying attention.
That's true.
Which is one of the reasons why I worry so much about the quality of questions I get as a state candidate from state delegates is astounding, because I've been through primaries and it just dies down. You don't have the same kind of involvement in a primary as you do in a convention
It's true.
race, and we get some really deep questions. But going back to your point, I started this is the most important race. And I'm serious about that. This is the most important race, but people have no idea why.
It's true. And we need to educate them.
Yeah. So try to do that.
Well, then
we do know we have to let you go because you've got to go to Nephi next.
Yeah, Nephi. So
a long drive, huh?
Well, not from here.
No, it's like.
Nephi.
Can I go the back way to Nephi from here?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I think
then
it's
yeah,
like
it's pretty
ride.
close.
Dodging turkeys and deer.
45 minutes.
Okay, but yeah.
Sometimes
So
you'll be
it's another
here.
convention. I forget which county Nephi's in. Is it?
San Pete?
No, because that's Manti. That was last night. It's not San Juan. I want to say San Juan, but I think it's another S. Sorry.
Is it Juab? No,
Yes.
it's Juab.
It is Juab.
Okay.
So what I was wondering, you will be here Friday.
Yes.
So people come out to the convention if you're not a delegate or anything, but you just want to get to know, Tina, you want to get to know what the office is about, or you have questions. And I know some of you know exactly what we're talking about when you're with what we've experienced in places here and there. Her website is tinacannon.com, and wow, I mean, you're talking to the citizens and you're saying, look, I don't care if these electeds like me or not. I don't work for them.
Yeah.
That makes me happy.
Yeah,
You're a
go.
lot more bold than John. John's just chill with everybody. He's just easygoing.
So
You
John
are a
introduced
pistol.
John introduced me the other day down in Emery County to someone. He said, I've been a watchdog. Tina will be a bulldog.
Oh yeah, no, I
Nice.
get that.
Well, and I say a French bulldog because she is 4'11".
I will clarify.
Oui, oui.
But go to her website, check her out if you have any more questions, and if you want to donate, it's a donate button there. Help her out, get her across the line.
Are
This
you
is
running with signatures or
No, straight convention.
Yeah,
conventionally?
she's-
So
This race can actually be decided that day. If we can go over 60%, it'll put both of us at
Good.
you hear that, state delegates? If you want to get to know her, get to know her. If you can't donate financially, volunteer. Volunteer, make phone calls for her, but get to know her really well first before you call for her. But every little bit helps. Your time is valuable, just
Mhm.
like your money.
And seriously, this is a way we can hold government
This
accountable
is like the ultimate
in the
way.
moment.
Yeah,
And this is what we've been fighting about for
Mhm.
forever.
years.
Yeah.
Like, how do we hold people accountable? It's
Yeah.
so hard
We
because
work for you.
elections are so far apart. And if we
Yep.
do the right thing and we vote them out because we're
That-
unhappy,
or-
it still takes so long. If they're doing something wrong, how great. We
That
have an
or they
auditor.
just do all the shady stuff the first half of their term and then make us happy the second half. And then
I
we're
haven't seen that.
wash and
No, I
repeat.
don't know what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Wow.
But no, the auditor is the beast of the feast. We need it there.
That's amazing.
Thank you so much for
Thank
coming out. I'm going to walk
I
you out.
appreciate the opportunity.
Oh
Thank you.
yeah, anytime. And